everyone, this is Nick at Stridewise.com. Today I'm taking a look at the very versatile Dowler Cap Toe boot from Beckett Simonon. Beckett Simonon is a pretty unusual footwear company in that everything is made to order, like they just don't have any inventory. According to them, this means they have more ethical business practices because not having inventory, that means they use less waste, they use less fuel, they use less space, and so on. It also means these boots are really inexpensive. Having no inventory means there's like less warehouse space being used, less upfront investment, and so on. So man, they're cheap, and they're also pretty good quality, but they do take a really long time to come in the mail, which is a big downside of this brand. I should mention that I did get these boots for free from Beckett Simonon. They sent them over to me, and unfortunately I also quite like them, and I know that's going to make everyone think that I'm just saying I like them because I got them for free. All I can say for that is that I have criticized free boots in the past, and I'm going to criticize these as well. So let's get started. Now really quickly, I want to mention that you can get a discount on these already very inexpensive shoes if you want one with this code in the description below. You can also check it out on my website, but it's really going to have to be used very quickly. I only get like a 30-day limit on this code, so I'm going to have to cut this bit out of the video pretty quickly. So if you like these boots, they're already very cheap, make them even cheaper. Use the code and I get a little kickback and everybody wins, but you're very time bound on this. So if you like them, you kind of have to act quickly. So as you can see, I've been wearing the crap out of these boots. They're actually a few months old, and I also gave them to a friend of mine who took them on a trip around the French countryside. So they've seen a lot of miles, they've gone through a lot of paces. Yes, that's why the leather has creased pretty dramatically. That's pretty obvious. Obviously I have to point that out, kind of the elephant in the room here. But for the price point of these shoes, I'm really not complaining at all. And what's really interesting is that this is made from calfskin leather, but it's a much more like rugged and outdoorsy calfskin than I've come to expect. Calfskin is normally used on dressier boots. These are boots that can still take a beating in my opinion, and I think they're really versatile as well. That's the big thing with these boots. For me personally, as like a dude who reviews boots, I really heavily emphasize value and versatility, and this boot has them both in spades. It's got this nice flat leather sole as well, which definitely means the grip is not fantastic, but it also means that it's nice and flat from the outside. This is also a Blake stitched boot, so what that means is that it is not as heavy or as kind of clumpy as a Goodyear welted boot. It also means it's a bit harder to resole, but nonetheless, this is a lightweight boot, and I think you can wear it really easily with a t-shirt or like with chinos and a nice button down around the office. It's super versatile, super impressed by that. The main thing that really annoyed me with these boots is that the laces they give you are very short. So when they're actually on my foot, I can't get them past these top two speed hooks here. So that's kind of annoying, but you know, it's a pretty easy issue to fix. So this leather is full grain vegetable tanned calfskin. Probably the vegetable tanning is part of the reason why it's relatively tough for a calfskin, although again, it has creased quite a lot. Honestly, again, given this price, it doesn't bother me that much, but it'll depend on you as to whether or not the creasing is worth it. But I really like this leather nonetheless. I think it looks really cool. The leather's from Argentina. There's actually a fun article on Beckett Simonon's site where they explore the third-generation owned tannery, which is located in HENLEY outside of Buenos Aires, and it's owned by a family of Hungarians who fled to Argentina after World War II. But the boots actually aren't made in Argentina, they're made in Bogota in Colombia. And they're handmade too, which is a nice touch. I should also note that this is currently available in 7 different leathers, most of which are calfskin. There's also a couple of pull-up leathers if that's your thing and you want to minimize the creasing. So I spoke with the people at Beckett Simonon, and they told me that if you want to take care of these boots right, you want to clean and polish them every week or two. They told me if you're wearing it 3 times a week, you should clean and polish them every week with a waxy polish, like one from Saphir, which is pretty insanely frequent as far as cleaning and polishing goes. For my money, I've had these for a few months. I have not polished them. That's just because I like a more sort of rugged, beat up looking boot, especially with these, especially with boots at this price point. If you want your boots looking more soft and vibrant, be a bit more dressy, then yeah, you might want to think about cleaning and polishing them once every week. You also need to condition these, but you don't need to condition them quite as frequently as you would polish them, and especially if you're using a waxy polish, that's going to condition them in some respects anyway. Long story short, you want to get something like Saphir's Renovator and use that to condition the boots every couple of months, depending on how often you wear them. So this sole is pretty simple in that everything is leather. Leather outsole, stacked leather heel, leather midsole, leather insole. There's no cork whatsoever here. There's a bit of rubber on the heel. The leather outsole is something that some people hate and some people love. It definitely has big pros and cons. The pro is that it's, it's flexible, it's relatively soft, it has nice ground feel. It sounds great when you're walking around with them, indoors anyway. The downsides are that it gets scratched up and ugly. It's also not great in water. and it has next to no grip. Once you've been wearing them for a while and you've scratched up the sole, you get some grip, but then you have a scratched up sole and it's ugly. So it's really up to you as to whether or not that's worth it. Personally, some days I love leather soles and some days I hate them. I'm very erratic with my attitude toward leather soles, but since I kind of accepted them for what they offer and what they don't, I can appreciate it when I'm in the mood for it. This is also Blake stitched, so it's not Goodyear welted, which makes for a lighter shoe, albeit it's one that's probably a bit harder to resole. Beckett Simonon insists on calling this a resolable Blake stitch though, and there are indeed some Blake stitch shoes that can be resoled. You just might have a slightly harder time finding a cobbler happy to do that, but this is one of the more easy to resole Blake stitches. So these boots come in sizes 7 through 14 right now, and they fit true to size. So I'm an 11.5 in these, while in most of my boots I'm a size 11, because boots always run large for some reason. These guys are true to size, and they fit really, really well. I was very, very happy with the fit. It hews quite closely to the foot, especially around the arch and the midfoot. So a potential downside of that is when you look at these boots, they do kind of go in quite a lot around the arch and the instep, and then come back out around. So if you wanted, you could call it, it looks a little bit more bulbous than maybe some other dress work boot hybrids out there like Thursday or Parkhurst, which taper in a bit more around the edge. But the upside is that it really feels like it's cradling my foot very nicely. Like I feel support on the instep. I also have like plenty of room to wiggle my toes around here, which is a really big upside. Potential downside, yeah, it's a little bit bulbous, but I'm a big fan of this aesthetic anyway. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's no cork in this midsole. So like, yes, it doesn't quite mold to the shape of your foot in precisely the same way as a boot with a cork midsole would. Nonetheless, the arch support is really fantastic on this boot. There's a metal shank in there, and all of that combined with the fact that it's fully leather lined, so it's a nice soft experience, and I didn't have any break-in. I gotta say, I give them full marks for comfort here. Now, the biggest upsides and the biggest downsides with this boot are in the price. A pair of these boots, $219, which is phenomenally inexpensive, and that's the reason why this creasing in the leather just doesn't bother me at all in the slightest, especially for the punishment I've put them through. If they were $400, yeah, it would bother me. But for $220, it's exceptional value. I honestly think they're worth probably a good $100 more than this, so very happy with the price. The big downside of the price is the fact that they do this whole ethical made-to-order thing. So that means they make the shoes in batches, like they get the numbers from how many people want the boots. Then you wait a good 10 to 12 weeks for them to make them and send them to you. That is a very long ordering process. Now, I think for the price and everything, it's worth it. Like there are other companies that'll make you custom-made shoes to your specifications and they'll give them to you in less time than that, like a company like Dayton. But of course, those sorts of boots are like $500. So for the price, I think it's pretty good. You do have to wait. If you're an impatient man, you won't like that. But if you want to save some money, it's a pretty good way to go about it. All right, so why should you consider a pair of these boots from Beckett Simonon? They are very, very inexpensive. I've said that a million times, but it's very, very reasonably priced here. Also, they're very, very comfortable. I was really blown away by the comfort. They're lightweight. The arch support is really, really good, which is a rare thing for me to say about a pair of boots. Normally, you just kind of accept the fact that they're not going to have great arch support. This is very nice arch support, fully leather lined as well. And again, it cradles the foot very, very nicely. Like I feel supported not just in the arch, but also in the instep, and it doesn't squish my toes at the toe box as much as a lot of other boots that are going for this sort of dress work boot hybrid thing. So really happy with that comfort level. Also, they have free shipping and returns, which is also nice. And finally, I think the style itself is super versatile. And as I mentioned earlier, versatility and value are really important to me. And I think this gets a pretty good mark in both of those categories. You can dress these up, you can dress them down. Pretty hard to do it with this suit, but otherwise there are a few outfits that this shoe doesn't work with. Now, there are definitely some downsides with this pair of boots, besides the fact that the laces they give you are just too damn short. Number one, this leather outsole. There are plenty of upsides to a leather outsole, but definitely the lack of grip is a big downside when I am walking down steps in New York City, when I'm going down into the subway or just going down the steps of my apartment building. I'm always worried that I'm going to slip down the steps. I'm always holding onto the handrail. That's definitely a bummer. The grip does improve as the leather gets worn in, but nonetheless, it's not great grip. The leather crease pretty dramatically. I considered, there are some people that say you can get an iron and iron them out so long as you have like wet paper towels over it. I didn't want to risk ruining the boots, but I almost considered it because it's pretty serious creasing. Besides that, this is a Blake stitched sole. Again, plenty of upsides to that. It's very lightweight, but it does make it harder to resole. They say it can be resoled, but you're just a bit less likely to find a cobbler who's going to be able to do it. And also it has implications for water resistance as well. Blake stitches are not super water resistant, worth pointing out. The fit is snug. It fit my foot like absolutely perfectly, but if you are on the wider side, they're just not going to work for you, unfortunately. They're not too tight around the toes or anything, but yeah, it cradles the foot very nicely, which means if you have an unusually wide foot, you might be in trouble. Finally, The biggest downside, I think, for these boots, you've got to wait a good 2 months to get them after you order them. So if you are not patient, you won't be happy. All right, those are my thoughts on the Dowler Cap Toe boot from Beckett Simonon. My full written review with a bunch of pretty pictures and everything is in the description below. There's also a link to buy them there if you want. If you don't, that's totally okay. And make sure you subscribe as well, because I have just a whole lot more boot reviews and boot comparisons and product reviews coming up.